Let's pivot to business and branding with Keith and Christina. John's going to hang out with us here today, and we're going to continue talking about what we started on Friday, which was the Business Athlete Manifesto. And John, I'm not expecting you heard anything on Friday there, and you and I haven't talked about this idea of a manifesto before. I'm suspecting you have one, just haven't probably specifically articulated as one, or maybe haven't even maybe written it down and called it that. But Christina and I leaned into this conversation last week, Johnny, about this idea of writing down your principles, your values, what you stand for, publishing it for the world to hold on to and say, yeah, here's who I am. Christina's dad did it. I did it a number of years back, John, and I called it the Business Athlete Manifesto. And what it is a list of values. It's a list of principles that I uphold and I believe in. And when somebody meets me, John, for the first time, what I often say is I created a video about it. I said, hey, go watch this video. And if you align with this video of me, then we're going to work well together. If you don't align with these values, we're probably not going to work well together. So we're going to continue the conversation here today around the Business Athlete Manifesto and the values and of what they hold. And we're going to continue to go through them. Does that sound a good idea, Christina?
Love it. Let's do it.
Let's do it. So Johnny, last Friday when we started this, and Nation, we started this, and I got a whole list of them here. But the first one we talked about last week was put humans and wellness first. Every single day, and John, you've gotten to know me well enough, and you as well, Flinner. That's the most important thing to me. You got to take care of yourself, humans, and wellness first. We then leaned into prioritizing physical, mental, and emotional self-care. Today, I want to talk about leadership. And today, I really want to talk about what I believe in so strongly, and I'm suspecting my colleagues today here with me believe in this as well. It's one thing to believe in it, but then it's another thing to actually follow through on it. And it's this idea, number 3 on the list, and with no numerical order, but from a leadership perspective in the Business Athlete Manifesto, leading with love. And to me, it's not the rom-com of love. I'm not talking about a Sandra Bullock movie and Matthew McConaughey a romance love movie. I'm talking leading with love. I'm talking taking the human being that you're leading, knowing who they are, understanding who they are, understanding what moves them or motivates them or inspires them, understanding what helps move them forward, and then leaning into that with your love and helping them achieve those goals. I have found, Christina and John, since I have moved love to the front of my leadership principles, magic has happened for me. I would really love to start with you, Christina. When you hear me say lead with love, what does that mean to you when you hear somebody say that?
I think it's easier said than done. I think it's a matter of, it's not what we're used to. And that's what a lot of these concepts are. When you think about leadership, somebody comes to your mind, right? We always create these stories. And There's a figure that comes to your mind in terms of an executive or a leader. The hope one day is that when you use the word leader, you use the word executive, that vision that we have now that looks like one person that leads in one way, hopefully that goes away for the most part. And hopefully what it's replaced with is somebody who leads with love, is somebody who gives a shit about people, is somebody who is not about squeezing every ounce of effectiveness or productivity out of an individual, but rather saying, you are with me for a certain period of time. I cannot guarantee how long that is or what we will do together. But what I do know is that we are both human beings. And so tell me about yourself. Let me understand what your goals are. And then how can we work together, me with my experience and skills and you with yours, to get you to where you want to be next. And I think the critical part in all that is that whether it's with me and my team or not, I don't give a shit if you stay on my team, because if that's not aligned with your goals, that's not the right thing. Maybe that's going to be easier for me, but it's not going to be aligned with what's best for you. And I think that's truly leading with love. How can I use my skills and expertise, resources, platform, whatever it is, to get you to the next place that you want to get with the long-term goal in mind? And how do we do that together?
Man, that's powerful. Yeah. And I just got to go right in there, brother. I mean, I so agree with everything you said. It's magnificent, Christina. And I find for myself that I guess to a certain extent, I'm doing this without really realizing it. And here's why. Because I figured out along the way that when I learned to love myself first,
Mhm.
I was filling my own personal cup up with love. And then then my leadership was filled with love. There was love in my cup because I loved myself full of all sorts of good stuff, love being one of them. And then my leadership skills became pretty much aligned with what we're talking about here. And that's it. One of the sayings that I have is discipline is self-love. You have the discipline to love yourself and love yourself all the way. It translates into amazing things, and it goes right into leadership.
Sometimes, in my experience, leading with love is telling somebody what they don't want to hear, or
Yes.
giving them something they don't want to hear. But I think if you set the principle early in your relationship with this human, and you build that trust, and Christina, you're right. This is not a common conversation in leadership. But if I can set the tone with you, let's just play a role play here as my colleague, that I'm going to lead you with love on day one. Right. And I'm going to tell you that I'm going to lead you with love. I'm giving you my manifesto on day one. We're working there. Here's my book on how I'm going to lead you, Christina. I really strongly believe that gives me permission. That's the wrong word. It gives me the ability to work with you, to move you through situations where you're wondering, what the hell am I doing? But you're knowing that I'm leading you with love, even through things you don't want to do, because I'm aligned with helping you get to your biggest goals. Do you follow me, Christina? I guess what I'm trying to say, sometimes you got to lead somebody where they don't want to go, but you're doing it because of what they've told you, but you have to do it with love. Does that make sense?
That's the exact definition of what love is, right?
Yes.
The best parents out there are willing to have difficult conversations with their kids.
Mhm.
They're willing to say, there's going to be instances where I'm not your friend. My job is to do what I have to do, whether you agree with it or not, in your best interest. And I will do the best that I possibly can as it relates to that. Sometimes you're going to like that, and sometimes you're not going to like that. My hope is that over time, you'll have enough trust in me that I'm not going to play that card unless I really need to, unless it's towards doing my job. And so if you trust me in that, and I'm not expecting my fucking 5-year-old kid to trust me in that, that will come later. But the nice part about having an adult relationship is that if I show you every day that I do mean these things, and if we develop trust with one another, then when I come to you with a hard conversation, which is something leaders really challenge with doing, and how do you approach that, then my hope is that it's within your best interest, and we're all moving towards what you want, what you told me are your goals.
Yes. Yeah.
Let me sneak one little thing in there. Christina's so correct. With my little girls, they got so tired of hearing me say, I will be your father first. I'll be your friend second. And as your father, I have to do the hard things, and I have to do the things that I know is best for you, as to where if I was being your friend first, I wouldn't be serving you into your future. And now that they're grown, they're like, man, that makes so much sense. And thank you, Dad. So on point, Christina, so on point.
Yeah. We're talking business and branding with Keith and Christina and John Anderson. We're leaning into the Business Athlete Manifesto, and we've been talking about leading with love. Again, a superpower that I've learned as a leader. If you can truly lead with love, I really believe you will unlock performance within your team, within your family, within yourself that you can't even imagine. I really believe that. I think that is a skill that if you can intentionally hone on a daily basis with your colleagues, you're going to set records within your business. All right, next one. This one's an easy one, guys, but yet John, Christina, is so often overlooked by most humans. Yet for me, I learned early on in life, and Anderson, I'm suspecting you did as well. But this one here is so simple, yet and so powerful and so meaningful for everyone who receives it. Yet it's, I find, so difficult for most to deliver it. Have good manners. Yeah, it's so basic and simple. But saying yes to somebody, saying please, saying thank you, please and thank you are, and maybe Johnny, they're just Canadian things, Keith and Christina talking here. But man, the power of a please, but more importantly, the power of a thank you. Holy smokes, man. Does that ever go a long ways? And I know somebody tuning in right now is going, what is this, the Hulk Hogan show, Eat Your Wheaties? Yeah, in some ways that it is. Because I'm telling you, man, the power of manners will make somebody remember you more than anything else that you do. Anything. Because when you make somebody feel good about themselves through the power of your words, through a good manner, man, you're going to move mountains with good manners. Christina, let's start with you on this one.
So I'm going to challenge the idea of manners, although I think I understand what you're saying, because I think a lot of us were raised with a different definition of manners. Sometimes manners are presented as very old school traditional. This is the path. This is what you do. This is how you eat. This is how you refer to somebody. This is how you talk. And I think that some of those manners that we've been taught are not necessarily indicative of good people, but rather this like perpetuation of an ideal of what is supposed to be. So I don't love the ideas of manners, but what I think you're saying that resonates with me is just showing people, one, that you appreciate them. We talked about it earlier on the show. Jory Jansen said that her husband said, "What are you getting out of this?" And she said, "I'm showing up because I feel appreciated." There's real power in that conversation. And the next is acknowledging that even if you're in a leadership position, and even if somebody has the responsibility to report to you, doesn't mean that everything needs to be done ASAP. Doesn't mean that you don't appreciate and you don't ask them with manners or just saying, "Hey, can you please do this for me?" It's just like a simple acknowledgement that, yes, I'm shoving something into your life and that might be your responsibility to me. But at the same time, we're humans and I'm acknowledging that I'm doing it. I have posted about it. I talk about it all the time. When somebody asks me to do something ASAP, my immediate reaction is to do something never. I'm like, I don't give a fuck. There's something so visceral inside me when somebody tells me to do something ASAP, because that's saying, you could even use the words as soon as possible, and I wouldn't refer to it that way. It's just this overuse of like, you better do this and you better do it now and you better do it. I don't care what's going on in your life. This needs to be done. And with no consideration of that in your employees, it makes me viscerally say, I'm doing it never.
So I want to come back to this. Johnny, I want to hear your comments on manners. I want to come back to Christina because I don't fully agree with Christina on this one.
Well, I like to keep things simple. And so when we talk about manners, I think that it fits perfectly into kind of what the concept I'm going to talk about here right now is that I think what people don't realize is that every time we come across with something, we have a conversation with someone, we interact with someone, that we're basically, that person's going to have a reaction that's going to be good or bad. It's one of the two. It may be a little good, maybe a little bad. You're not sitting in the middle. And so having good manners is going to definitely help you make sure that the people you're affecting positively. If you don't have good manners, people are like, forget that son of a bitch. And so I think the idea of if you just have good manners or you behave in a very respectful way, you behave in a way that motivates and inspires, however you want to define your behavior or your manners, just remember that everybody you come in contact with is going to get a good or bad reaction from how you behave or your set of manners.
Yes. Yeah. And we're going to wrap up here in a couple of minutes. I know we got a hard stop here in a couple of minutes here, but Tina, so I hear you loud and clear. I'm wondering if we're just overcomplicating it though. And what I'm wondering out loud with what you said is if somebody has taken the time to build their trust with you, and if somebody's taken the time to build a relationship with you, and if somebody's taken the time to express themselves, what's important in their values, and here's my manifesto, the moment that I come to ask you for something that needs to be done in a certain period of time, my belief is that we've built that trust pattern in place. When I say, hey, Tina, I fucked up, man. I need to get this done ASAP because I messed up. Can you help me?
That's entirely different.
Yes, that's my point, because I've built the trust, but I built the trust around manners, because on day one, I said, please, I've said, thank you. I've treated you with respect. And I know it sounds so old school and so traditional. You're right. But man, those words go a long way so that when we do have to go to battle, you're like, okay, I remember how he made me feel when he first met me. I remember how John made me feel when he first addressed me as, hey, Miss Christina, or whatever. So I really believe that those little moments that we sometimes don't even articulate in our head or aren't even aware of, that when we express them, that when the going gets tough and I say to Tina, hey, I need this ASAP, you're ready to rock and roll, because I've earned that through proper manners or through tradition to get you there to that point. Do you know what I'm saying, Christina?
Yeah, I think we're talking about tone. basically. And that's likely my own bias on how people have used ASAP towards me. So
towards you. Yes.
I worked in an environment where, one, everything was ASAP. Fuck off. No, it's not. It doesn't need to be done as soon as possible. You just would like it done because you would like to put a checkbox beside it because that makes you feel really good. But if it requires me and my time and attention, I need to figure out where it lives in my to-do list. So there's a difference there. And that's likely where my visceral reaction comes from. And I think, the way that you described, hey, this has come up, something's happened. It doesn't matter if it was your fault or not. I don't give a shit. Something's happened, but we need to get to this as soon as possible. There's an entirely different tone versus, hey, you need to do this ASAP. If you say, hey, you need to do this ASAP, I'm middle fingering you. I'm like, fuck you. I don't care. I'm doing it never. And because it puts your time and what you need to accomplish above my time and what I need to accomplish. So I think that's what we're talking about here. We're talking about respect. Yes, if we've developed a great relationship and we've got mutual respect for what other people are doing, then great, let's do that. I also think maybe we're confusing, or maybe my association with manners is also an association with etiquette. And maybe that's where I'm also getting caught up too. When I think of manners, I think of etiquette. I think of what's prim and proper. I think of how we as women have been told we need to conduct ourselves and what it looks like to be this and that, and how we need to show ourselves off in society. So that's also likely a bias of mine. But I'm all about please and thank yous because I recognize a lot of times when I'm in the US, I'll say thanks so much and people won't respond to you're welcome. They'll go, I'm like, why? There's something about it, but it's also the way I was raised.
And Christina, that's really interesting that you say that, because when your digestion of the word manners was different, my digestion was, okay, manners, I immediately went to how do I behave? As to where you took manners in more of, okay, hold your fork the right way. And so the digestion of the word
socialization, because boys are not taught to behave the same way as girls are taught. When we look at behavior and socializing young girls versus young boys, girls are often taught to be seen and not heard. Girls are often taught they need to show up in a certain way. Like I fought against wearing a dress because girls were meant to wear dresses. Like little things like that were socialized of, it doesn't matter what you care about. It doesn't matter what's authentically you. This is what society expects of you, and this is how you should act. Whereas, and I'm not making any assumptions, but generally, most young boys are not always raised with that same sort of etiquette or manners.
I know what I care about, Johnny, and I care about my friend Christina Flynn, who gave me a hard stop at 10 o'clock Eastern time. And because I lead with love, I'm wrapping up the show. I'm wrapping up.
Appreciate you.
There we go.
Airbnb checkout time, fam.
We're wrapping up because Coach Flinner's got to rock and roll. Hey, you're here with Keith, Christina, John Anderson, business and branding segment. We're wrapping up the show here today. We had a great, awesome show. 2 hours of nothing but nuggets dropping from beginning to end. And I'm going to rapidly end it because Flinner's got to go and we're going to lead with love. Yeah. And we're going to come back tomorrow. The business and branding segment, Business Athlete Performance Lab, Mornings in the Lab. We're going to continue digging into the Business Athlete Manifesto. Great conversation. And I'll just leave with this. Christina, I think about it more like Johnny does, right? Which is how can I show up for you so I can make an impression with you with good manners? That's how I lean into the whole conversation about manners. Johnny, thanks for showing up today, brother. Tina, thanks for showing up today, sister. And Jimmy, producer Jimmy, thanks for pressing the buttons. Marty, rock and roll. And we'll see you guys tomorrow mornings in the lab at 8 o'clock Eastern time. We got to get out of here. Flinner's got to go. Leave with love. I'll see you guys tomorrow.